Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into what is literally one of the most celebrated lines in history. It's just a single sentence, but man, it has the power to completely transform how we understand personal struggle and pain. We're going to unpack the entire architecture of this metaphor, break it down, and see exactly why it's resonated with people for centuries. Let's get right into it. The wound is the place where the light enters you. Now, this is from the 13th century poet and mystic Rumi. And wow, this single sentence carries such a profound perspective on pain, doesn't it? It suggests that our deepest emotional or physical wounds aren't just points of damage, like, a dead end. Instead, they actually act as entryways. Rather than seeing suffering purely as a tragedy, Rumi frames it as this quiet, transformative opening. I actually want you to take a quick second right now. Think about it. Does this quote resonate with a struggle you're reflecting on, or maybe even going through right at this very moment? There's something incredibly grounding about looking back on our darkest days, especially once we finally come through the other side. We so often realize that the very things that felt like they were completely breaking us, they were actually the exact cracks that let grace in. So, Section 1, Wounds create an opening, stripping away the armor. This right here brilliantly illustrates the contrast happening inside us during moments of immense hardship. When pain first hits, our usual armor, our defenses, our ego, it all just gets forcibly stripped away. And yeah, as a result, we're left super vulnerable and exposed. But here's the kicker. In that very exposure, we become open to entirely new pathways. In a literal sense, a wound is a crack, right? A tear in our protective shell. So the absolutely crucial point here is that Rumi is suggesting this breaking open isn't just pure destruction. Now, obviously, it totally feels like destruction when you're in the thick of it, but it's actually the necessary creation of a space. It carves out a literal pathway inside us that simply did not exist before the pain happened. Basically, without that tear in the armor, whatever's waiting on the outside just can't get in. Moving on to Section 2, Light as Healing Awareness. What enters the crack? If we look at the source material, we can actually break down this metaphorical light into three really distinct, powerful qualities. First up, self-awareness and wisdom. Second is empathy and compassion, which is basically how experiencing our own wounds softens us and makes us way more understanding of other people's suffering. And third, spiritual awakening, which is super deeply rooted in Rumi's own worldview. So let's explore exactly how each of these actually enters our lives. Now, it's actually fascinating to contrast comfort and pain here to explain that first point about self-awareness. When we're comfortable, we tend to just stay surface level, right? Everything is fine, so we just keep cruising forward on autopilot. But pain? Pain is often literally the only thing that forces us to hit a hard pause. It makes us reflect and deeply examine our lives in a way that comfort just never would. And that forced reflection, that is a self-awareness, the light entering right through the wound. Leaning into the Sufi philosophy that Rumi practiced, we get this really profound perspective on spiritual awakening. Being humbled by our wounds is the exact mechanism that allows divine love, profound truth, and immense empathy to finally enter. Once our ego is fully out of the way, the universe, or whatever greater truth you subscribe to, can finally reach you. Which brings us to Section 3, Reframing Our Deepest Pain, Shifting the Perspective. This is where the true power of Rumi's philosophy really shines. It's asking us to make a massive mental shift. We're moving away from viewing suffering purely as a negative tragedy, just a dead end of damage. Instead, we're shifting our perspective to recognize suffering as a necessary catalyst for growth. Now, I want to be super clear here. This absolutely does not glorify pain for its own sake. Pain is still pain, for sure. But this reframing is all about emphasizing what can actually be born out of it. The very places you felt broken actually transform. They turn what was once just a really painful memory into a testament of your own resilience, your strength, and your grace. That crack in your foundation, it eventually becomes the exact vantage point through which you view your whole life, just with a much deeper understanding. So, to bring it all together and summarize what we've learned from this explainer today, our hardest moments do so much more than just leave scars on the surface. Our deepest pain strips away our defenses for one reason and one reason only: to make room. It creates that essential, vital space necessary for our greatest strength and our deepest wisdom to finally take root. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. Think back to a struggle you've survived in the past. What specific strength or perspective or empathy did you gain? that you might never have found without going through that exact hardship. Well, that strength, that is the light that found its way in. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I truly hope this reframing brings a little more clarity and a little more light to your own journey.